Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Weekly for Saturday, October 23rd, 2021. And our top story today, the importance of life insurance to those you leave behind. Joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Nakia Bynum with PFS Investments. Nakia, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me this morning, Jeff.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you. And we're going to talk about life insurance. And I guess my first question to you is, life insurance isn't just for the wealthy. We all need to consider having life insurance, regardless of our accumulation of wealth.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree, Jeffrey, just because more importantly, it's personal because my fiance passed away. And I have actually felt differently about it ever since losing him, understanding that rather than calling it life insurance, what if we call it income protection? Okay. And so now looking at it that way, God forbid the loss of a life, the loss of a breadwinner, what income does that individual take with them? I know a lot of times when people talk about life insurance, they say, well, you just need enough for burial and a couple of dollars. But if that is not enough to cover that loved one's income, God forbid if they have a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, how many years would you want their lifestyle to remain, if not the same, better? To me, just changes the conversation from just a funeral to actually income protection due to the loss of a loved one.
Yeah, absolutely. And our condolences for your loss. And thank you so much for sharing what led you to this decision to help others. There's a lot to consider when it comes to insurance. There's different types of products. What can we do as consumers or people who, I have to think that there's greater interest now because of COVID in life insurance and protecting others. But what do we need to do to evaluate different types of products that are out there?
Well, Jeff, first, I would strongly recommend for families to look outside the employer for things that are significant and that's going to impact your household personally. I myself do not believe that if someone could lay me off or fire me, that they genuinely can have my best interests at heart for life insurance or retirement, because it's so much control that they have. So for the consumer, I would have them to sit down and write out exactly what is their monthly income, be it the breadwinner, okay, or if it's a mom that's a single mom, and then do the calculation and say, you know what, I'm bringing in $3,000 a month. Okay, that averages me out to almost maybe $40,000 or $50,000 a year. My youngest child is 4 years old. So God forbid if something happens to me, I need a minimum of over $500,000 in life insurance. And when you have the conversation from an income protection conversation, then you can pick the product that is most suitable for you. Because unfortunately, Jeff, agents get paid for a sale and they don't care what they sell you. Because a lot of the products that they're selling the families, they actually give the agent more money than the benefit that it is to the family. So for me, as a consumer first, I need to paint a real life picture, because honestly, if all I have is $10,000, I don't believe much of it I will want to go to the funeral home, because I now had to replace the income of a loved one that just passed away. So I would encourage everyone to be very, very, very honest with yourself and ask about what income would be lost. God forbid something happens to either myself or my husband.
Really good point. And it comes down to being a good consumer, but not only a good consumer and understanding the products, but also in selecting someone to help work with you, right? And you mentioned sometimes there are conflicts of interest where a financial advisor or a professional may put themselves ahead of the consumer. And that may not be, it may just be subconscious, right? I mean, that you have quotas, you have sales goals, all those types of things. How do I find a great financial person to help me pick products? What are some tools or tactics that you would recommend when finding somebody to assist with buying life insurance?
Well, I would ask one, as a consumer, I would want to know, well, hey, Jeff, do you have this for you and your family? Okay. First and foremost, do you have it for your family? What benefits has it done for you and your family? To me, if it's not something that you will want for your family, and you can't explain to me why it is a very simple reason why you have it for your family and what difference you have seen it has made in your family, or what difference you have seen it make in the lifestyles of any of your prior clients, then I really am just believing what you say versus real life situations. For myself, I have had mothers who have lost husbands due to COVID, and he was the breadwinner. And thankfully, because I sat down with them, the mothers have been able to stay home, grieve, and readjust their household for almost 2.5 years. So for me, I believe it has to be extremely personal and not something that you're just selling me and you're not in the best interest of my family versus in the best interest of your bank account.
Yeah, really, really important to ask these questions. Last question, Nakia. In terms of the process to get life insurance, and I actually just went through this recently myself to buy some term life insurance. What are things that I should expect if I'm out there buying life insurance from someone like yourself? What's the process like?
Well, typically for term insurance, which I highly recommend because it's where you can be able to get the greatest amount of coverage for the least money. And then what you do is you then take your money and you put money into an investment. Okay, so that you can be having life insurance and you can also have some money growing because term insurance is of a lower cost base. But the average application takes about 10 to 15 minutes. Some companies, they do require a medical exam as you get in the upper coverage of maybe $1 million, $500,000, which again is on a company basis. But again, just looking at your household and saying, okay, my youngest child is 3 years old. So God forbid if something was to happen to me, I need to make sure that my youngest child has enough income protection up until my child is 21 or 25. I want to make sure that college is taken care of. I want to make sure that my wife doesn't have to run out and go now try to obtain 2 and 3 jobs to replace me. So the dynamics that you're looking at is what's real in your household. And when the agents talk about products, because I had an agent do it with me, Jeff, she asked me, she said, so you want enough coverage for bury you in a couple dollars? But Jeff, the reality of it is that my couple dollars is different from your couple dollars. So if we don't have tangible numbers, okay, this is $5,000 a month household, this is a $6,000 a month household, then everything is just really smoke and mirrors. And so when families are talking about life insurance that are also contingent on how you passed away, it's important that families know that accidental death is only an 8% chance. So if you don't die by accident, then your family doesn't get that. So it's so many things that have to deal with just really keeping it simple and wanting to know what would be the loss of income, God forbid, if something happens to the breadwinner of the household.
Yeah, really important to understand those contractual details, as you're saying, and understand what you're buying. Nakia, it is a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks so much for breaking this down. And look, we look forward to having you back on again very soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate you taking out the time to meet with me.
Thanks, Nakia. And when we come back, we'll take a look at some of our best segments for the week. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN Weekly. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. On Thursday, Invesco's Greg Jenkins joined BRN AM to discuss the importance of language when communicating retirement benefits. Let's take a look.
Yeah, well, thank you. In Control at 50 Plus, How to Succeed in the New World of Work. And it's a McGraw-Hill is my publisher on it. And it's on pre-order now on Amazon and a couple of other spots. So just indie books, I think, also. So just look for it. I'm really excited about it. I know it's so extraordinary, but the thing is, Jeff, this has been happening for a while. I mean, it's not that this is brand new, but what has happened is coming out of the pandemic, it's increasingly become something that employers have become reliant on to screen resumes. So it's just, boom, you're just out of luck. If there's so many ways that you can be eliminated, and employers realize that they're missing out on these people, but they actually don't care because it just cuts through the clutter of getting through the process. So the chances of you actually getting to speak to a human being are very slim through these electronic resume submissions, and actually having a human being review it. And so there's some sort of techniques that you can take to kind of try to get around it. But this Harvard Business School study, I think, is really powerful in making the point that, hey, the playing surface is not even. Well, as I said, they realize that it's screening people out, but the fact is this has become the method for resumes to be submitted to employers is electronically. And this is one way that they can kind of cull through them very quickly to get at the specific criteria. So it is very, specific. And if you've been out of work for a period of time, you can be eliminated very quickly. And there's so many things that can trip you up, but they put in all these filters to really get down to a core set of characteristics and skills that they think will be essential to that job without taking in all the other things. Like you just mentioned, can you actually screen for experience and know-how and sort of the ballast that an experienced worker brings to the workplace? No, that's something that you have to actually meet the person. Oh, it is so demoralizing. I can't tell you this ghosting, like you will send off a resume electronically and you hear nothing. And it is really discouraging, demoralizing, and you feel rejected without understanding why. And you take it personally when it's not even a person evaluating you. It's the electronics, it's the AI, the artificial intelligence. It's just gotten more and more, very precise at being able to weed through these resumes. And it's really hard for workers, and really it's workers of all ages. I think younger workers have issues with this method as well, because there are certain things and ways to game the system, but they get copped out pretty easily as well. It's so impersonal, and so it's really so unfortunate because it takes the human element out of the job search. And I think both employers and employees suffer because of this, because you miss finding really those special relationships, that loyalty, finding someone who's actually passionate about your business or, and what you do, your service, your product. And you lose out. You don't get these people to come into your fold. And I think it's a real loss for everyone. I understand it's a time-saving device. It's, weeding through a stack of resumes because people are applying to jobs like crazy, right? And coming out of the pandemic even more so. But it's this sense of filtering that really takes out the critical piece of making a good match.
And on Friday, Delphi Digital's Kevin Kelly joined BRN AM to discuss the new Bitcoin ETF. Let's take a look.
So it's been a really interesting last couple of weeks. What you basically saw was earlier this year, Bitcoin ran up as it usually does. We saw pretty big what they consider consolidation. So price was kind of trending lower. You're starting to see a little bit of volatility pull out of the market. And then what we really saw was, to your point, this announcement around a Bitcoin linked ETF, which we'll get into in a minute. That announcement started to spark, revive some excitement, I guess you could say, around, Bitcoin, the rest of the crypto market. And you started to see Bitcoin really start to trend higher. And we actually put out a market note early last week, basically outlining the setup for this, because not only did you have this ETF announcement coming, but you also had a number of kind of technical indicators and momentum indicators that were really kind of pointing towards Bitcoin moving higher and potentially even breaking to a new all-time high, which we luckily saw this week. And so it's been a culmination of a handful of things. I also think institutions have come back into this market, in a pretty big way, especially when it comes to this ETF, which is one of the most successful ETF launches you've ever seen. After that summer lull, right, where usually institutional investors kind of take the summer off, or there's lower trading volume, you're now seeing them come back in full force into both traditional markets as well as crypto. So there's a lot of things going on that are really exciting heading into year end. There's some important differences between this ETF versus what they would consider a spot ETF, which I'll get into. But basically, this ETF is linked to futures, right? So it's not actually trading the underlying or holding the underlying Bitcoin spot. And there's a number of reasons why that's an important difference to make. One of the big reasons why the SEC still has not approved a spot ETF for Bitcoin within the US is they still consider that the spot market to be a bit more immature. It's not nearly as regulated as the futures market, which has been around for decades. And so I look at this as it's not the best type of product that we would hope for, but it is a stepping stone, right? It's at least a first step that gets regulators at least hopefully more comfortable with this. They've already seen, again, in the first just 2 days of trading, and the amount of AUM that the ProShares ETF's been able to accumulate, which is now over $1 billion. I think because there's so much pent up demand and they're seeing that in real time, I think it could accelerate the timeline for getting us a spot ETF, but there are some important differences, which I'm happy to get into. Yes, institutional players are certainly a big part of this. It also includes, financial advisors, RIAs, right? Getting into this, and whether or not they understand the intricate differences between a futures linked product and a spot product, is kind of up to them, but you are seeing a lot of flows from the more kind of financial advisory world as well. And then you have the ability to trade in and out of this in like an RIA account, right? And so actual like retail investing, having this get into retirement portfolios is another kind of source of flows, right? And this is going to bring, I think the silver lining here is this brings more, not only attention, but more liquidity to this market, right? It is futures based, it's trading CME futures, again, very regulated. But by nature of having more of these flows come in, I think you're going to see the underlying liquidity in spot also react to this as well. So far, what it looks like is institutions as well as the financial advisory world is really kind of driving this forward, right? There has been a bit of an embracing of this product. And again, us understanding the differences between this, a lot of people are looking at this as just another point of validation, right? Because I think what the Bitcoin and the crypto community has realized is that as we're trying to, really not only make our mark, but have this mainstream adoption of crypto, you need these types of events and these types of catalysts to bring more people in, right? Whether it's, again, the most ideal way to come in, that's up for debate, but largely the sentiment around the crypto sphere is this is bullish. You're seeing it in the price reaction. You're seeing breakouts to new all-time highs. There's now talk about potentially an Ether ETF, on the way, if that's linked to futures as well. So it's just creating a lot of excitement and hype around what's going on. And I would say largely the sentiment's been positive.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN Weekly. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement, markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. We're back again tomorrow, this time for BRN Sunday. I'll be joined by members of the media, academia, and financial services as we look at all the news for the week. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited, and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.